No matter what's going on in your life, it's so important to have a place that you feel you can really get away from everything. Somewhere where you can relax and be yourself and be creative. And that is exactly what we're about to find in this incredible Spanish tiny house.
Hola, bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Soy Anne y estoy aquí con mi tiny. Este es el principio de un sueño y quiero compartirlo con vosotros. So I'm Canadian. I was born in Montreal, but I'm also a Spanish citizen. My mom is Spanish and she's from this area. And as a child, of course, I would come here in the summers and have fantastic memories because there's no school. Woo-hoo. And she had this dream of always coming back. And my Dutch husband, whom I met later on in life, when he first saw this place, he was just amazed. And we always thought, one day we're going to end up here. So after traveling many countries and different projects, we finally managed to come back, so to speak, to the roots. And we're trying to figure out what to do with this land that was in my mom's family for so long. We're very interested in sustainable practices. I'm a veterinarian, he's an agricultural engineer. So for us, the fact that also farming was being abandoned in the area here in this region made us think, okay, we have to be custodians of the land. We also have to use our knowledge on how is it viable to keep these spaces healthy and also beautiful. My grandfather, he planted these fruit trees, and then this became an orchard. Things grow very easily here because of the microclimate we have. And with my husband, who happens to be an agricultural engineer, that is kind of handy. We'd explore different varieties of plants, growing different types of vegetables, fruits, studying blueberry varieties, and also working with our forest. And it's really a natural garden in this part of Spain. I don't live in the tiny house full time, but I dream of living in it. Right now I'm in the main house still because I have to take care of people and administer the different activities because we have animals, people coming over, visiting, doing courses, and right now also we have a Ukrainian family that we're hosting. So we're a big family, and this is my quiet area where I can run away from the million things happening and reflect on ideas, work on some of my art, look out onto the orchard and just feel the peace. So as soon as we came up with the idea of building a tiny house, I thought immediately of accessibility. I wanted this place to be accessible, even though it might not completely fulfill because rules are different everywhere in terms of the minimal requirements of floor space. I wanted the space to allow people with reduced access, either in a wheelchair or somebody assisting that person, to be able to use the tiny house. So I called this tiny house Spiral. We have a spiral in the garden. The spiral is really about the path of life. It's circular. Sometimes we go forward and we go back to revisit parts of our lives and then move forward again, but it's always a progressive circular motion. And the spiral represents life, everybody's life. And so that's the name of our tiny house as well. So I built this DIY tiny house. Obviously, I don't have huge muscles and not a lot of knowledge with carpentry. So I found a local carpenter. He said, "Ooh, I actually never built houses." And I said, "You can do this." So it's been a beautiful experience this past year working with him. Enrique is the best. We used also the wood, that's Atlantic cedar that my Spanish grandfather planted over 100 years ago in these very forests surrounding us. I think he would be very excited about it, and we love its smell and its texture. So the size of our tiny is 6.5 meters long by 2.5 meters wide and 3.5 meters high on this end. So altogether gives us a good interior space of about 14 square meters. We are connected to the grid, however we have photovoltaic panels, and we revert back to the grid whatever we don't consume. And for water, we're connected to our local well, and right now that fills our needs for water and electricity. Bueno, pues vamos a ver la tiny por dentro. Os hago la bienvenida a Tiny House Espiral. Welcome inside a spiral tiny house. This is an open area to allow somebody with reduced mobility to move around freely. For me, this was important. So as much as possible, obstacle free. The only furniture that really can't move easily is the kitchen, but everything else is light, movable furniture. The idea here was to be able to feel like you're really outside. So there is a lot of windows. So you feel that you have green wherever you're looking. And also it's facing south. So the big panoramic window is looking onto the orchard, and the forest is in back of us and a little bit around us. The cladding is cedar, so we kind of used up all of our Atlantic cedar, and we had to use pine for the ceiling and for the floor. The cedar used on the walls gives us this characteristic smell and is also insect repellent, which is nice and actually important in Galicia because Galicia is humid. There's a lot of insects, a lot of organic life. So cedar repels some of that life from decomposing the wood over time. So it's nice that we could use as little pine as possible because we don't want to use treated wood. So over there we have the bedroom area looking out onto the garden. We have a bed that's queen size, and what I did here is I put it as high as possible in order to have storage space underneath. And then it's overlooking the garden. We maxed out on the panoramic window, so you get really this sense that you're outside. And the two lateral windows, that's the same idea. Feel that you're surrounded by the garden, but it also has a cross ventilation purpose. So the only thing I would have changed here is maybe here I would have put in a little loft with a little ladder for either storage or even an extra bed, and then turn it from a 2-person to a 3-person, or potentially 4-person tiny house. So this bed is actually just on its 4 legs, and it can be easily moved out in order to keep it flexible, especially if we need to adapt it to particular needs for people with reduced mobility. So I start my days early. I have to look after animals, and then I have to look after people. So after lunch, what do you do in Spain? You have a siesta, and I try. Sometimes I can't, but I generally need one. So this is a great area to come. And I get this perfect combination of just laying myself down for a few minutes, sometimes an hour, and then just looking out onto the garden. You know, I can read or think or do a little bit of my drumming. Actually, 15 minutes of drumming is equivalent to 45 minutes of a quiet sitting down meditation. So for me, this is excellent because I like to be efficient in my day, and I get a lot more relaxation out of that. So here we have the living room area, and it's just principally this IKEA couch. I found the narrowest one possible, a light one, so it can be easily moved out. Because to be honest, if it was just me in here, I wouldn't have it. I like to sit on the floor a lot, just roll out a carpet and have some cushions. But it has that flexibility, and I think a lot of people still like to have a couch. And then some of my daughter's art, because actually she inspired me to use this as a creative space. She's done some of these tapestries, and in the main house, I have some of my children's artwork everywhere. So I thought, okay, for me, it's important to surround myself with their creativity, so it inspires me to continue also on a creative path. And then we have the kitchen right over here. It's an IKEA kitchen. Why an IKEA kitchen? Really, it costs less than to have Enrique build it for us, and it was a question of time as well. So it's a basic kitchen, so you know, the sink, fridge and freezer, yeah, because you need your ice cream, some drawers, and then here we have just a 2-range stovetop, so there's no oven, and of course it needed a nice big window because if you're doing dishes, you want to still look out into the garden. It makes dishwashing much more enjoyable. And then we have the dining area. So this is a 2-person, not a stretch 3-person dining area, and it just folds away. It creates this big space. I can roll out my yoga mat here and just use maximum amount of floor. I have a good 3 meters here by 1.5 meters that I can use. And then I can flip it up and have tea with a friend, or actually work on some of my art here at the table. I like to work mostly now on wood engravings, doing signage for the gardens, and also just developing my creative side. As a veterinarian, now retired, I think about animals a lot and what animals mean to us as humans. And the idea is that animals also have medicine and lessons for us. So I'm working on a lot of animal symbolism. It has the window. On second thought, I would have maybe made the window a little bit narrower because it kind of eats into the bathroom area. But again, that was the idea of having maximum lighting. So behind me, we have the bathroom. And the idea here was to have an area, again, free of clutter. The curtain I chose as a simple, economic, and lightweight solution to give intimacy to the bathroom area and separating from the living quarters. There's no sink. Because we do have a kitchen sink. The only fixed thing is the shower, and it's a wide shower, so a person can go in and out easily. And the toilet, the compost toilet, can be easily moved out of the way, so we didn't fix it to the wall in case we need to have that space for maneuvering a wheelchair and so on. So that gives us a wide enough space, intimacy, and the minimum features needed for a bathroom. So a Spiral Tiny House has been finished for 5 months now and costs probably around 35,000 euro. So even though I don't live full time in this tiny house, having come into this space, you make choices. You make choices about what is really important to you, what you need. And going back to that basics is a very liberating experience and really generates a sense of freedom. This minimalizing is also affecting your behavior. It's affecting other people, hopefully in a positive way as well, in terms of facilitating, which is one of the things I like to do, is to facilitate and help others discover what they are really all about in this life by coming here and retreating. Well, this is an exercise that's important for me to have first. I've always been interested in mental health issues and wellness. I've worked with people with mental disabilities mostly, and I think this affects all of us throughout our lives. At one point or other, we're going to be more or less able to do something. So I think in disability more in terms of functional diversity. So I work with my dogs. For example, we do animal therapy with people who have autism spectrum disorder in the village nearby, and that has allowed me to, together with what we've been experiencing with lockdown and everything, how we more and more need to think of our individual and collective wellness. So individually, each person has to do kind of their own introspective work. Where am I well? So I want people to ask themselves those questions. I ask myself those questions. And by forgetting ourselves for a moment, we paradoxically can, through nature, reconnect to our true essential self. And so that kind of wellness work for me is important. Explore ways to function better as a society. Clearly, the tiny house movement is about getting away from large-scale industrial cookie-cutter solutions and the relationship, obviously, that we have with nature, and trying to be a custodian and respectful of nature by decreasing the size of our footprint and also listening in. And in a tiny house, you can listen in and connect ideas. And this is sort of what is organically happening just by that starting point of saying, I just want to share what we have. I don't really know exactly where I'm going with this, but I'm fulfilling my life dream of opening the space to people who come with ideas to offer to others or others in need of just a time to reconnect with their true essential nature.
What a beautiful place Anna's creating here. The tiny house is so gorgeous. The gardens are just an absolute dream. I love how she is really trying to create a space that is a sanctuary, not only for herself, but also for others that visit. She really has done a fantastic job with this place.